Welcome to our 2025 Gala of Unity, celebrating diversity and understanding for stalking victims.
The most common way people give up their power is thinking that they don't have any. That is Alice Walker. And I think it's really important to think about that when we think about what we're here to discuss. I'm so glad that people like Turquoise Williams, Margot Lee Williams, and Koya Bakari did not give their power to someone else. It's really difficult being in a situation like this, knowing that there's very little that you could do about it, and yet still fighting. So thank you very much. You give me inspiration, you give me courage. As a lawyer, and I am not 34, I am barely legal. As a lawyer, sometimes the inadequacy of the law really amazes me. But since that's what I do for a living, that's what we're going to be discussing in my speech. I want to read the law in reference to stalking to you. Please bear with me. It is convoluted. The sections don't seem to make sense, but it is what it is, and I think it's really important that we know what we are talking about legally when we talk about stalking. So Maryland Criminal Law Code Section 3-802 defines stalking as a malicious course of conduct that includes approaching or pursuing another where the person intends to place or knows or reasonably should have known the conduct would place another in reasonable fear of bodily injury, of an assault in any degree, of rape or sexual offense as defined by sections 3-303 through 3-308 of this title, or attempted rape or sexual offense in any degree, of false imprisonment or death, or that a third person will likely suffer any of the acts listed in item 1 of this item, or the person intends to cause or knows or reasonably should have known that the conduct would cause emotional distress to another, and stalking, quote unquote, includes conduct described in item 1 of this section, item 1 of this subsection that occurs in person, by electronic communication as defined by section 3-805 of this subtitle, or through the use of a device that can pinpoint or track the location of another person without the person's knowledge or consent. The provisions of this section do not apply to conduct that is performed to ensure compliance with a court order, performed to carry out a specific lawful commercial purpose, or authorized, required, or protected by local, state, or federal law. Any person may not engage in stalking. A person who violates this section is guilty of a misdemeanor, and a conviction is subject to imprisonment not exceeding 5 years or a fine not exceeding $5,000 or both. A sentence imposed under this section may be separate from and consecutive to or concurrent with a sentence for any other crime based on the acts establishing a violation of this section. That is what Maryland Criminal Code Section 3-802 having to do with stalking states. Is everybody confused? Yes, yes. But yes, it is confusing and convoluted, and I think everybody here is saying, thank goodness I didn't have to sit through law school. Yes. In other words, what stalking talks about is a malicious course of conduct. And we already know what it includes, things like reasonable fear of assault, death, rape, bodily injury, false imprisonment, and so on and so forth. The law itself anticipates that this behavior is going to occur more than once. So if someone does something that bothers you that fits under this category, but they only do it once, that's it. Yeah. The person can't be convicted of stalking. And also, the part about the victim's fear must be reasonable. What does a reasonable fear mean? I mean, I am terrified of snakes, just terrified. I mean, even seeing the word is like, but I see people all the time with snakes around their necks, and it's just, so is my fear of snakes considered to be unreasonable just because other people don't have that same fear? So I think we might want to look at the law and see what it is that we can do to protect the victims better. And there are certain types of stalking behaviors that we need to talk to as well. You heard some discussion about that, the online behavior as well as in-person behavior, or as young people say, IRL, in real life. That type of some certain types of behaviors could be considered stalking. And more specifically, examples include following or repeatedly approaching the victim in public places, appearing at the victim's home, workplace, or school uninvited, making harassing phone calls or sending threatening messages, monitoring the victim's activities or using technology to track him, her, or their movements, and leaving unwanted gifts and items for the victims. Yes, even something nice could be considered stalking if it's not welcome behavior. And perpetrators, as well as victims, can be found everywhere. So, they could be found in your house, they could be found in your community, just everywhere. The church, sorry, I know I'm here. Church, schools, just absolutely everywhere. And all sorts of identities could be perpetrators and victims. We have perpetrators and victims from all races or gender identities, all economic levels, all abilities, all ages, just everywhere. And I think the way that the media seems to try to desensitize us to stalking behavior is an issue for me. I grew up, since I am barely legal, I could say that I grew up during the time that Family Matters was very popular. And even at that age, I couldn't understand why what Urkel was doing to Laura was acceptable. She would be in her house minding her own business, and he would just come up and just try to bother her. I don't know, do you guys remember Family Matters with Urkel, Steve Urkel and Laura Winslow? Yeah, people thought that was funny. I'm like, why is that funny? Just something in me just kept on saying, that's not funny behavior. She's in her house. She should feel safe in her house. She shouldn't have to have somebody come and bother her in her own house. And I especially thought that was weird because her father was a police officer. So even he, as a police officer, according to the media, didn't have a problem with his daughter being, I consider that stalking behavior in her own house. And I felt that to be an extremely dangerous message to send to people, because it tells the victim, what happens also in episodes following that stalking behavior is that Steve Urkel takes a serum and becomes Stefan, and Laura was very fond of Stefan. And I thought that was an extremely damaged message to give to young people, especially because what it told me was that, okay, you, Laura, don't know your own mind. You might not like Steve Urkel as Steve Urkel, but he takes a serum, and now he's Stefan, and you're fine with that, but Stefan is still Steve. And if he was bothering you before, him taking another form doesn't mean that he's not bothersome. And the fact that she wasn't bothered, the fact that the character was not bothered by that really was problematic to me, because it told victims that you don't know your own mind. We think that it's very important that law enforcement understand the experience of the person being stalked and be trained to help them. I'm a former officer in the military police corps, and we were not taught about stalking when I was in there. And I think that this is something that I would have liked to have known more about. And I'm glad that there is more that is going on nowadays to teach people and educate people about stalking and to stop this behavior, because this behavior is really not healthy for either the perpetrator or the victim. I want to end this by saying the most common way people give up their power is by thinking that they don't have any. So thank you very much, Alice Walker, for putting it so elegantly and eloquently. And let's work and keep on working towards eliminating stalking. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. To see more from our annual gala, click the top video. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe.